Well, guys, we're back with another video and a new looking office. Now, obviously the Cowboys haven't had a great start to the season, and they're playing the Atlanta Falcons this weekend, which is probably going to be a tough matchup, especially for the Cowboys defense that is just absolutely annihilated with injuries. Now, a lot of you are probably freaking out. So to make you feel better, I'm going to read some comments from people that are probably freaking out a little bit more than you are. So let's look at these overreactions as the Cowboys sit at 3-4. Let me know down in the comments which ones you do and don't agree with. So let's get into the video. Now, I tried to group all of these comments kind of by sections, so we're going to start with the coaching. Someone said, coaches call stale game plans, other teams win more games with less talent. And I think a lot of Cowboys fans feel that way. They have ever since Jason Garrett was here. For over a decade, Cowboys fans have felt like this. And I do agree that some coaches win with less talent. Do I think that Mike McCarthy is the best coach in the world, the best offensive play caller? No. But I do want to put this team into perspective just a little bit. What is Mike McCarthy working with? On offense, they have no true run game, and you can blame that on the coaches, on McCarthy, the game plan, the scheme, whatever you want to. But the reality of the situation is they're not blocking well up front, and they don't have a true running back one. On the outside, they don't have a wide receiver two. They're working with Jalen Brooks and Kevontae Turpin as their wide receiver 3 and 4. And I like Jalen Tolbert, but he's not going to consistently win as the wide receiver 2 for this team. Outside of Lamb, there's really not a whole lot of big play ability. Then you get to the offensive line where you're playing with a rookie left tackle, a bad below average right tackle. The right guard is declining. You're playing with a rookie center. And that's just on the offensive side of the ball. So the roster isn't good. We talked about it all offseason long, how the Cowboys did nothing to get better while they lost starters. It's just not good. And that's not even to mention the defensive side of the ball, where you're missing Deron Bland, Kalen Carson, Micah Parsons, Sam Williams, Marshawn Kneeland, DeMarcus Lawrence. You've had awful defensive tackle play, which is also on the roster building. You've had bad safety play with Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson. Oh, and I forgot to mention on the offensive side of the ball as well, you have one true tight end that got hurt in week 1, and nobody behind him that has really ever made an impact in the NFL. So while I agree that the coaches have a stale game plan, I'm not a huge Mike McCarthy guy. I also think there's a lot of missing talent on this roster. Coaching can only take you so far. At some point, you have to have the talent to beat the guy in front of you. Look at the Dolphins this year. They couldn't move the ball without Tua. Even though they have great wide receivers, they have a great play caller in Mike McDaniels, they've been terrible on offense. It's a good example of how far coaching can take you. The 49ers haven't been that great this year. Granted, they did beat the Cowboys, and I think Kyle Shanahan is a really good offensive play caller. But again, they haven't been awesome on offense. My point is, it's more than just Mike McCarthy, but it doesn't absolve him from all of the blame. I agree, it's been stale, boring, and it doesn't help anyone, especially Dak Prescott. Now let's talk about this overreaction next. Before we continue, I wanted to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, BETUS. They have much more than just football, basketball, baseball, hockey, tennis, even surfing. I mean, you name it, BETUS has it. But we all really like football around here, and they have NFL futures like the Super Bowl winner, conference winners, division winners, playoff specials, all of those fun future odds. They have you covered. The possibilities really are endless with BETUS. If you sign up today, you'll get a 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2. So go check out BETUS, where the game begins. The Dak deal is worse than Deshaun Watson. I'm going to just flat out say it. This is a complete overreaction. The Deshaun Watson deal is going to go down as the worst contract in NFL history. Half a bad season from Dak is not going to put him in the conversation for worst contract of all time. Watson got 5 years, $230 million, fully guaranteed. Full. The Browns cannot do anything without even looking at the stats, because Dak has been much better than Deshaun Watson over the past few years. Watson's cap hit looks like $27 million this year, $72.9 million next year, 2026, $72.9 million again. And assuming that the Browns don't move any money around, no restructures, he'll still have a cap hit of nearly $27 million after he's a free agent and gone from Cleveland. Those numbers are going to stay if the Browns don't do anything to push that money down the road, which could end up making it even worse for them 5 years from now. So now you look at the numbers from 2022 to 2024. 2022 was the year that Watson got his guaranteed deal, and it's not even close. Dak earned his $40 million per year contract, and he earned his $60 million per year contract. I mean, just look at the stats. They're completely undeniable. And yes, I am considering the injury history because, fingers crossed, Dak has stayed healthy. So let's stay with the Dak overreaction. Somebody said Dak is a terrible quarterback. And I think we've seen enough since 2016 to know that that just isn't true. Has he played bad this year? Of course, at certain times he hasn't played well and he needs to play better. Earlier, I explained how many pieces that this roster is missing, how void of talent they are on the offensive side of the ball. That's just not debatable. They have one legit wide receiver, one legit tight end, and zero running game. And a lot of people hate Mike McCarthy, think he's an awful play caller. So that's where we're at with this offense. I mean, look at CJ Stroud in last night's game. He was missing his top two wide receivers. Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins were out. They couldn't move the ball against the Jets. I think everybody, even Dak lovers, have acknowledged how he's played this year. But I think a large majority of it is because the team is just bad. And it brings up the question, what quarterback do you think would succeed with this roster? The first person that's going to pop into everybody's mind is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes would. He lifts his teams up. They win games. And yes, that's true. The Chiefs do win games. But the reality is, Mahomes has been just as bad, if not worse, than Dak this year. And yet, the Kansas City Chiefs are 7-0. And you know why? The organization built a great roster around Mahomes when he isn't playing well. Now, I'm not trying to make the argument that Dak is better than Patrick Mahomes. I'm not completely delusional, but context does matter. I believe if Dak had that Kansas City defense, he could probably lead this Chiefs team to 7-0. Much like the Cowboys, the Chiefs have no wide receivers. They have a decent run game and one tight end that they trust, and the best play caller in the league in Andy Reid. You just can't expect a quarterback to cover up all of your roster holes. It's the Cowboys and organization's job to reduce the amount of deficiencies a team has. It doesn't make Dak a bad quarterback if he's not winning every single game. And I think this comment is an overreaction. All right, let's head on to our next one. We already talked about the first half of this overreaction, so let's talk about the second half. The Cowboys should trade Micah for 2 first-round picks and rebuild. Okay, I'm not big on trading star players, especially quarterbacks, wide receivers, defensive end, corners, any of those premium positions. I'm not really interested in moving those players. Now, I am going to say, with all of the roster holes that we talked about earlier in the video, I think if someone calls, you listen. I'm not saying you make the trade, but you listen. If someone would have made this comment last year, I would have called you crazy. I would have said absolutely not. Right now, though, sitting at 3-4, I'll listen to the idea, but the risk is still just too high for me unless you're getting an insane package back, because the chances of finding pieces to replace what Parsons brings to the table is very, very slim, even if you have 3 first-round picks. But I also think with the pending contract, the way that the roster is currently constructed, the way that the Cowboys like to operate, it's a conversation worth having. I also kind of want to hear it so I don't have to listen to Jerry Jones and Steven complain about Dak, CD, and Micah's contracts every offseason from now until eternity and why they can't pay players. I don't think trading Micah is an overreaction, but like I mentioned earlier, Dak's not a bad quarterback. Let's do a little speed run here. This guy commented, probably an overreaction, but I think we can win the division. We, as in the Cowboys. And I'm going to say overreaction. The Commanders, unless they completely collapse, and you're really going to need two teams to collapse like the Eagles did last year. But the Commanders and Eagles are starting to pull away from the Cowboys in the division. Cowboys have an insane schedule coming up. So I think this is an overreaction. I don't think that Dallas has a chance to win the division. Dallas might finish with a top 5 pick. I'm not going to say it's an overreaction, but I am going to say it's extremely unlikely. Like a lot of people, a lot of Cowboys fans, you probably think that Dallas is one of the worst teams in the league. And as bad as they've been this year, they still sit at 13th in the draft order, at least before the start of week 9 or wherever we're at. And they have teams like the Giants, Cleveland, Vegas, New Orleans, Jacksonville, New England, Tennessee, Carolina. All of those teams are significantly worse than Dallas. Now, I did say overreact, and it would probably take the Cowboys losing out to get in the top 5 or only winning 1 or maybe 2 games. But I don't think that's going to happen. If anything, they're going to get to that 8-win mark, that 7-win mark, and be somewhere in the middle. I don't see them coming out with a top 5 pick. So that's all of our overreactions today. If you have an overreaction, drop it below in the comments. I want to start doing videos like this where I listen to you guys, listen to your comments, and kind of react and give my take to them. So if you have an overreaction that you want me to talk about next week, comment it down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.